This video is sponsored by Surfshark. Kathleen Kennedy's current contract as head honcho of Lucasfilm is set to expire before long, and the day-to-day creative responsibilities on the current Star Wars flag bearer, The Mandalorian, are being handled by Jon Favreau. But Kathleen Kennedy remains the head honcho of Lucasfilm, and with that role comes power. The power to position herself to remain connected to Lucasfilm, even if neither Disney nor Favreau really wants her there. In this editorial, I will begin by going through why Disney Plus in particular may provide a lifeline, recap the rumors making the rounds, compare them with what we've heard, and see how the upcoming Obi-Wan miniseries fits into all of this.
Begun. The streaming war has.
The theatrical experience, as we know it, is no more, and even after the pandemic is over, it won't return to what it once was. But people need their bread and circus, and that circus is going to come in the guise of long-form streaming content. That is vital background information to everything that's going on at Disney right now. While still an also-ran compared with Netflix, Disney Plus were ahead of the curve compared to many others, and in the current situation, The Mandalorian has gotten a Battlefield promotion to, at least for the moment, the single most important title in Disney's brand portfolio, as that, more than anything, is responsible for the growth of Disney Plus, which is just about the only thing the Disney Corporation has working in its favor right now. So naturally, everyone wants a Mandalorian of their own. Unless you're Kathleen Kennedy, who not only wants a Mandalorian of her own, but the proverbial Mandalorian itself. I'll get back to that momentarily, but first, everyone really does want their own Mandalorian, and none more so than HBO Max. We've already covered how Wonder Woman 84 will be going straight to HBO Max, where it, before long, will be joined by Godzilla vs. King Kong. Now, that's awesome if you're in the US where HBO Max is available, but if you're not, then that movie might show up in your local Netflix library, at another local provider, or not at all, depending on where you are. Luckily, there are ways around such geo-blocking restrictions, for instance by using a VPN, such as the one delivered by this channel's sponsor, Surfshark. A VPN, or Virtual Private Network, is a privacy protection tool which guarantees instant online safety and encrypts all data sent via the internet. On top of that, Surfshark allows you to bypass geo-blocking restrictions by changing the country you access the internet from, which also gives you access to 15 different Netflix libraries by simply changing your virtual location. One of the advantages with Surfshark over many other VPN providers is that it allows one account to be used on unlimited devices. That's part of the reason why Surfshark is the VPN of our choice, and it gets even better. If you type in the code MIDNIGHT when ordering, that triggers an exclusive offer in which you now get 84% off the normal list price, plus 4 extra months for free. Surfshark also offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk in trying it out. Do check out the link in the description below for further details and to order. Now that you know how to access the streaming libraries of your choice, let's get back to The Mandalorian. Clearly, that show is one of the main driving forces behind the explosive growth of Disney Plus. And according to insider WDW Pro over at Pirates and Princesses, Kathleen Kennedy has been able to usurp credit for that success, even if her own contribution to what made it successful was mostly sitting back while Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni consulted with George Lucas and worked their brand of magic. Ironically though, their success could contribute towards Kathleen Kennedy, whom none of them reportedly wants in the room, staying on, along with her commitment towards using Star Wars as a means towards furthering a political end. WDW Pro wrote, "We're hearing that a change is afoot over at Lucasfilm. Whereas previously we had believed that Kathleen Kennedy would leave her position as head of Lucasfilm when her contract ends, taking a legacy position within the Walt Disney Company, we now believe that may be in question. According to sources familiar with the ongoings of Lucasfilm, we now believe that Mrs. Kennedy may be positioning herself to stay at Lucasfilm." After addressing the shift to streaming, he said, "Combined with the power of a successful series on Disney Plus, the job opportunities in Hollywood going forward are limited and changing. Whereas Kennedy would have had her choice of positions before the pandemic. That's no longer so certain. This provides her with incentive to keep the current job. We also believe that she's interested in pushing her ideological views, and a new strategy is being formed in which properties like The Mandalorian are protected from such measures, while other new series are given license to push the philosophical boundaries. We believe Leslie Headland is part of that strategy. Then comes the interesting part, which I'll elaborate on more afterwards. But even if Kennedy wishes to stay on at Lucasfilm, surely she doesn't have the support behind her, you might say. And to some degree, you'd be right. Before continuing, but Kennedy has a secret weapon to staying on as president of Lucasfilm. He then goes through, in codified form, Disney's working relationship with, the ruling party of the Middle Kingdom. There, Disney has, in not so many words, entered a Faustian deal, one which there is no easy or affordable way out of. Quite the contrary, they have to, if not actively participate in, then at the very least turn a blind eye to practices we associate with a rather spotty part of German history. With that established, let's continue with the article, which says that while placating the party, Disney are trying to keep their stock up during a pandemic, and that the main way they do that is through inflated numbers of subscribers to their new streaming service. Pretty much, if those numbers underperform, the company's stock will crater and things get really, really ugly. The article then gets to the gist of the matter, which is that Disney at this point in time are at such a perilous state, their share price so utterly dependent on the continued success of Disney Plus, that they can't risk anything at all, which could signal to the market that audiences are cancelling their Disney Plus subscriptions. Although this article doesn't say it, I feel that here, it's prudent to point out that Disney's share price rose despite them reporting losses of billions in the Q4 fiscal presentation, and it did so in no small part because of the higher than expected Disney Plus subscription numbers. In a world where Disney's once assets have become liabilities, Disney Plus is the single cause for optimism. It is the one thing they really have going for them. That is to say that right now, to prevent the share price from tumbling, Disney are utterly dependent on the perceived success and continued growth of Disney Plus. What WDW Pro is saying here is that Kathleen Kennedy is using that situation to leverage her future. But how is she doing that? How does the importance of continued success with Disney Plus translate to her finding another way to latch onto Disney and Lucasfilm, outside of locking herself in as a producer on that Children of Blood and Bone series that she's setting up? It's really a resurgence of an age-old question. Many have wondered, how does Kathleen Kennedy stay on after so many failures? Some have even asked, in jest, is she blackmailing them? Well, that's pushing it, but not entirely wrong. WDW Pro first wrote this a few days back. The reason this video is only coming now is because I had to check in with our own sources to hear what they had to say about this. Before we move on, I have to preface with the usual warnings. These are things I have heard from people with alleged access to inside information, but this is in no shape or form official information. As such, it cannot be independently verified, meaning it must be considered as rumor and taken with the appropriate sodium intake. So, with that health warning out of the way, let's move on to what we've heard from our sources, and that is very much so in line with what WDW Pro is reporting. Kathleen Kennedy is by all accounts an ideologue. She has staffed Lucasfilm with fellow ideologues and the only new fans, and I use the term loosely now, that Kennedy has brought to Star Wars are those that don't really care about Star Wars beyond the, let's call them, values that Kennedy and her acolytes have infused Star Wars with. Yet these fans are very, very loud and very, very visible. They do not show their support of Star Wars in any appreciable way, but they will strike down hard on anyone displaying any kind of wrongthink. Case in point, people demanding Gina Carano be fired for the high crime of refusing to bend the knee to the mob, and female Mandalorians having armor tailored to their bodies making headlines. Both of those are patently ridiculous, yet a lot of people got riled up, and if they got riled up over that, Imagine what they would be if it suddenly starts trending on Twitter that Disney let a female executive go for being too progressive. And then suddenly Variety or The Hollywood Reporter or both break scoops citing undisclosed sources, putting a narrative out there that won't be beneficial to Disney. The people I have spoken to do not have first-hand knowledge of this, let that be clear, but the rumor making the rounds is that Kathleen Kennedy has, one way or the other, communicated that if she is shown the door, lest her demands be met, the castle will, in not so many words, be burned down on her way out the door. Not in a physical sense, of course, but by way of very bad press coming Disney's way, and the possibility of a hashtag I cancelled my Disney Plus subscription or something like that starting to trend. We have previously heard and reported that if Kathleen Kennedy were to be shown the door before her contract was up, she would not go quietly. To Disney, that was scary back when all that was at stake were brownie points. But seeing as Disney's share price right now is propped up by the perceived success of Disney Plus, anything that jeopardizes that perception isn't just scary, it's beyond scary. What all of this will lead to in the end, I don't know, but Favreau formally taking over suddenly got a whole lot less likely. And the recent casting call for the Obi-Wan miniseries, as reported by Ichi Baka over at Disney Star Wars, is dumb. Does certainly lend support to the notion that Kathleen Kennedy's influence isn't over yet. Let me know what you think of this in the comments, and to help bypass quarrelsome geo-blocking restrictions, get Surfshark VPN. Use our code MIDNIGHT to get 84% off plus 4 extra months for free. Link is in the description.